Whitman, it is a pleasure to meet you like this and talk to you. And before we talk about your products at KAV Sports, which I'm very excited about, I'm a bike guy. I like hockey. I'm just not very good at it, but I also like to stay protected. Just give us like the 1-minute bio of yourself. How did you get into helmet manufacturing and sports? And obviously, too, a lot of people who watch this channel are going to be interested because you're a local guy.
Yeah, oh, thank you, Brody. My background, I used to race bikes at the collegiate level, and I always had trouble finding a helmet that fit. And more recently, my kids have been playing hockey, of course. And the challenge, I think, was when my son, Aiden, went into the Bantams, where the checkings started, his team just got clobbered, right? And I don't know if that's because we're from the Bay Area eating organic food and everyone's just a little smaller than out Midwest or up north. But it was really obvious that from when I had raced competitively to when I had kids, like the technologies in helmet just have not kept up, unlike in a lot of other areas. And so I actually had two co-founders, Mike Lowe, who's from Giro Bell, and David Stoudemeyer from Google. And we basically just got together and said, how can we make this better? How can we make a better experience? And how can we make a better and more protective helmet? And so we literally just started from the ground up. And I think being uniquely located in the Bay Area where you've got so many professional sports teams, but also Silicon Valley, gave us this great opportunity to intermingle sports, technology, and science to create a much better helmet. And so my background, I'm an engineer in training, and I have an MBA from Columbia. And so we thought we had all the ingredients between the three of us to make a great pass at really changing the world one head at a time.
So your guys' helmet is totally different from the major manufacturers. I mean, I can tell that by just looking at them. And I know you have a couple examples there. Maybe give us a bit of a tour. What does the KAV hockey helmet do for a hockey player? How is it different? How is it better than the rest of the competition?
Yeah, thank you. So it's interesting. Like we focus first and foremost on safety and making the helmet much more protective. So we had started out with a number of prototypes, and so this is one of the earlier prototypes, and we have all the markings for like impact locations, right? That we want to systematically impact and make sure and kind of monitor as we improved each prototype. And this is our friend Bob, the dummy, right? And
looks like Curtis Brown, by the way.
It has a shocking resemblance to him. Yes,
a dummy.
And so we really iterate on this, and at the same time, we had a number of designs, and I'll show you like a much older helmet that we shopped around in the rinks. And, I tell you, players, whether they're NHL players or kids, are not shy about giving you feedback on things like this, right? And so it took us almost as long to get the design to the point where it is now, where I think it's universally liked. It's got a nice modern take on the hockey helmet, as it did for us to build out all the protective aspects. And I think what we learned early on is that if we were to fulfill our mission, making more protective equipment, better equipment that reduces head injuries, the product just had to look fabulous. Fundamentally, people, if they have to pick between a safer helmet and a one that makes them look good, I think there's a natural inclination to go to what makes you feel good, right? Like just looking good on the ice. And so we put a big emphasis on that. So I spent a lot of time, along with Mike, in very stinky locker rooms trying to figure that out. And so let me get back to your original question about a quick overview of the helmet.
Yeah.
And so this is our production version. This is a nice navy blue. One of the first things we noticed, actually, particularly amongst the younger players, is that they have a really difficult time strapping their helmet in. Right, typically you have straps on the cage that tie back here, and if you're a kid trying to put a helmet on and then blindly snapping these metal straps, and sometimes with their gloves on because they don't know better, you're a parent. I think you can appreciate like having to be in the locker room and tying the skates and helping the kids get on, getting the helmet on. So we designed what we call these quick clips. And what they do is just pushing the fingers, you can release the cage really easily. And you can just push the cage in and it locks in place. And we've
Nice.
tested these up to with 80-mile-per-hour puck impacts, and it still retains it. Yet it's super easy for kids to pop the cage right off.
I've got to admit that even a 40-year-old who doesn't play very much, I have trouble getting those two snaps on the back of my helmet. And actually, so it leads me to asking, I mean, obviously you got the cage on there. That's what I rock for obvious reasons. So your helmet, it can have all the accessories that a hockey player would want to put on there. And I also noticed on your website, it talked about having no screws or no screw holes or no,
Yeah.
well, no extra hardware maybe.
Yeah, that's right. So we have, looking around for a moment here. Sorry.
It's all good.
Be right back. You take a commercial break, right?
Right.
So yeah, one of the other problems we observed was that I think I blanked this out. So no.
Good job. Yep.
Right. Yeah. But my son's playing, and just even after a couple of months in the cold, harsh climates of the rink, right, all the bolts are rusted. Number of cases where you've got that final game, you made it into the championships, and you have some problem with the cage, and you can't swap it out because the screws are rusted or they
Right.
broke. And so what we did is we did a screwless, boltless design, so you can see all the hardware, because everything is 3D printed. It's all integrated into the helmet directly. This serves two purposes. One, there's nothing to rust or break off. It's a much more durable helmet, and we warranty them for 5 years, which I think is an industry as a new standard. And the other benefit, though, is that from an impact perspective, you can imagine that we end up having much better safety impacts here, because you don't have a steel bolt that's kind of facing your head and on impact going towards it. And that also transfers a lot of energy directly to your head. Whether or not that the bolt actually makes contact with you, it's transferring all that energy directly to your forehead. Instead, we have energy absorbing elastomer behind here, which acts as a shock absorber. And so any impact to the cages also gets absorbed into the helmet frame, as opposed to transferring it directly to your head.
And let me see if I've got this right. Every hockey helmet you guys make is custom?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. We basically take your head measurements.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you do from the comfort of your home. I think that was particularly relevant during COVID. But
Yep.
even now, hockey players are busy. Whether you're NHL and you're on the road playing, or kids traveling tournaments, like, it's just easier to get measured at home or from the comfort of your hotel. And then we measure it. It's custom fit. And what that does is, obviously, it gives you a much more comfortable fit. Existing helmets, a lot of times they have a hard foam that, we talk about Hannon or Brownie. They don't want to switch helmets because they spend all this time breaking their helmet in, right? Like, basically forming it to the head over many years. These fit great right out of the box. It allows us to make the helmet profile much slimmer because they're not kind of oversized to fit your head. They're fit exactly. And we do a lot of things with respect to the ventilation and cooling as well, because we don't use foam and we use our own what's called thermal polyurethane, and it keeps your head a lot cooler. One of the things I noticed while skating was how sweaty I got, even though you're on the ice, right? Like, you're
Right.
literally in a freezer and you're sweating bullets, and we thought that was kind of outrageous. So we instrumented a bunch of sensors to our early helmets to capture head temperatures, and modified the venting to give you the best possible venting you can in a hockey helmet.
Hockey players have a lot of gear they need to get. Skates, pads, for a lot of different portions of the body. But I mean, the head being the most integral part of any human being, it is worthwhile to mention here, I think, the advances you guys have had in technology and safety. How does your helmet compare? And I know it's a different design. How does it compare in the most important way, and that is safety, compared to what's out there right now?
Yeah, of course. So I always say, like, no helmet, including ours, like, can entirely prevent concussions, right?
Yeah.
And the best that we can do from an engineering perspective is reduce the linear and angular accelerations that a player's head will experience. So linear acceleration would be kind of what you feel like when you're hitting the brakes on your car, right? And just it's a forward backward motion or a direct impact to your head. And rotational, of course, is more of the spinning motion that you might get typically, like if you get checked, cross-checked on the side of your head and your head's kind of whipping.
Some whiplash, yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a whiplash effect. It causes a lot of twisting in your neurons and synapses, and obviously not great for your brain. So we've optimized for both of those situations. We've done comparative studies between the most popular helmets and ours. And again, not to call out any individual, so I'll kind of average things out. We have anywhere from a 20 to 40% improvement, or I would say reduction in the linear and rotational accelerations that your head will experience wearing a KAV helmet. And statistically, from a concussion perspective, that can be up to a 9x improvement in concussions because it's an exponential function, meaning each incremental amount of acceleration your head experience is more than linear. It can be double or quadruple depending where you are on the curve. So we're really, really happy with the science and the results of all the engineering. And I'm happy to go into kind of how we did it and some of the materials we used. But that's that's a high level answer here.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you could, I do have more questions, but maybe since we're right here now, and I don't need the long answer, because you have, so much information, I'm sure. But what's the short and simple commentary about how far you test these things to know for sure that when you sell them, like you're selling the best that can possibly be out there right now?
Yeah. So we just do a lot of testing, and so. We're of course certified by HEC, and they indicate different impact locations and scenarios that we need to meet. For us, that is kind of the minimum bar, and so we actually have a map that basically creates a grid across the entire helmet. So we will do a drop impact, and we basically have this giant rig that we built ourselves that impacts the helmet, where it's prescribed. Right here, where it's prescribed, but we'll also move it an inch over, and another inch over, and another inch over, and then an inch above. And so we can literally get a whole map, and we monitored areas where we didn't perform as well as other areas of the helmet, and we actually made engineering changes so that you get a very consistent performance across the helmet. The second thing we did is the materials that we use are much more durable than the existing foams that are typically used. And so it's pretty common to get a degradation of performance on foam. These are the standard vinyl nitrile, and we have EPS foam here, or an EPP foam that's typically used in helmets. And if you keep compressing this repeatedly, or we joked about the custom fit, how NHL players will break in their helmet. Well, the very fact that the helmet is molding and getting densified in certain areas, and tells you a little bit about what its behavior is going to be, if you took an impact in that location. And that's very different than our, this is a cross section of our helmet where, you compress it and it just keeps bouncing back, indefinitely. So, there isn't a short answer to your question because it's just hard work. Like we just spend a lot of time in the lab testing, retesting. We do more stringent tests, meaning faster, harder impacts than what is required. The puck impact tests we do in-house have 2 times the amount of energy involved than what is prescribed by the certification bodies. And that's all just to make the very best helmet that we can, whether you're a mite just starting out or playing at the highest level in hockey.
And it's crazy you mentioned before, too, just the custom aspect of it. And I was talking about all the different pieces of equipment. Players, obviously they're baking their skates to try and get a custom fit. They would love to have a custom stick to get the blade pattern that they want. Everything is customized, but we've never really thought of, hey, here's a custom helmet that you could have. And to your point, instead of breaking it in, like it comes ready for you. So maybe I could ask you a couple rapid fire questions here.
Okay. faster. I'll try to
Because
go faster.
because I have a lot of there's simple stuff because I think a lot of people watching this right now have questions like, I have a son who's 7. You can make a helmet for any size, right?
That's right.
I would like a blue helmet. Can you get me a blue helmet yet?
Yes, we do blue, and we can do custom colors for like large team orders as well.
Oh, okay. So that was kind of my bigger question too of that. What was? Oh, I know. If I'm watching this right now, there's a measuring kit I have to get first, right? I got to do all the measuring. How long is the process? If I literally want to start it tonight, what's the timeline of when could I get my bucket?
Right. So we find, I think, that the primary constraint is getting the measurements. That's just people are busy. So the moment you sign up, we ship out a little kit. It's basically a tape measure and calipers, and it allows you to take a couple measurements in your head. Once you give that to us, the turnaround time, I would say typically is about 3 to 4 weeks. We've gone longer, as much as 6 to 8 weeks when we have a large backlog or at the beginning of the hockey season. That might just be a plug for, if you want a helmet, order it now.
Exactly.
And but obviously we try to be very upfront with what the lead times are so people can plan accordingly.
That's great. No, and I think to your point, here we are talking in May. We're about to approach the summertime. So like this is the time to take care of this stuff and get it done. So next season, when it rolls around and things are back to normal, you can be out there with a helmet. And I got to say, one of the coolest things about it is that it just stands out. It looks different. It is different. It performs different. But I told you before, if you made something that looked like everybody else, it wouldn't stand out. It wouldn't be a thing.